What?
What's up? So
Hey.
sorry, I'm battling Los Angeles traffic. I just pulled over. My bad. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for saying yes to doing this. I really appreciate you.
Oh, of course, of course. Anything I can do to help, I'm on it.
You know, and I don't know if you know this, and I don't know how much you heard me say before, but one of the things that I love the most about you and I respect the most about you is that you use your platform to really say what you want to say versus worrying about what everybody thinks. And you really
Uh,
put a lot of things of substance on, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Hey, you about to make a black man blush over here, girl. Watch yourself.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Thank you. Yeah, I think people are too beholden to status, you know, monetary values and all these things instead of speaking out on truth. And so I just try my best to stay steadfast to speaking out on truth, and trying to help heal. I didn't realize how important that was to me, until I got in into this position, I'll say, for lack of better terminology. But I came in this world with nothing. I'm gonna leave it with nothing. So I try to give as much as I can. There's no man on this earth that can take anything from me, that God gave me. So I'm always trying to, make sure that I get the word out about truth. What's up?
I love it. And I don't know if you and I've shared this with you before. One of the things that you said that really resonated with me, and maybe you can hit on this a little bit, is that you talked one time about having to park like miles away from an audition that you wanted to go to because you were so broke. And what it did for me is that it gave me this space of you can keep going, you can keep going, you can keep going, you can keep going. Because I left a job of teaching after 20 years where I had
Oh,
an
wow.
income coming in, and I taught in
Of
Miami. I
course.
shared that with you. But
Right,
I
right, right. My hometown. Yep.
yes. So can you tell
hmm
that story again, because that really that resonated for me.
It's not a story. It was commonplace. So I'm an actor, as you know. And we killed to eat, basically. So every time I would have an audition, I would do my best just to try to save even those $1 for parking and stuff like that. I would park half a mile away, 6, 7, 8 blocks away, to avoid paying $1, and avoid embarrassment, honestly, and overdrafting accounts while I was pursuing this dream. I dropped out of medical school. I was a biology major, and top of my class, but I had this passion, this hunger, to act, which was really odd to my family because I was probably the shyest kid anyone's ever seen. But I had this like burning in my belly, so I was like, by any means necessary, I'm going to try to accomplish this goal. And when I moved to LA, I had saved up some money, but I had no idea how expensive California was. And so I burned through that in probably about 2 months. My mom was very sick at the time, and almost, terminal a couple of times. So, when I was 19 years old, this is when I started taking care of her. And she joined me on this journey, to help, push me to become who I wanted to be. And we moved to LA, burned through our money in like 2 months. My car was sold to me fraudulently um, in New Jersey, and I drove across the country, and they repossessed my car. I didn't have a job. Like I said, I had $35 left in my bank account. No job, no car, no food. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna figure something out. I put $15 into a borrowed car, into the gas tank, and I used the other 20 to get some Campbell soup, some ramen noodles, and some sandwiches so that we could make it. And I was like, I'm not gonna come home till I get a job. So for 2 days, sun up to sundown, I just looked for jobs left and right, and finally got a job that was paying me like $40 a day. So I was like, okay, at least I can eat. I was staying in a family friend's garage apartment at the time, and just trying to make ends meet. And I got my first audition for a feature, which was Footloose, and kind of the rest was history. It was like a 2-month audition process, but I finally booked it, and I don't know if you've ever seen Pursuit of Happiness, but
I love
at the
that
end of the
movie.
movie, that's one of my favorite movies. At the end of the movie, he gets his dream job, you know, and he's overcome with emotion, just joy. And I had never experienced tears of joy before that moment. I got a call, you know, from my agent that I had booked the job, and I almost passed out. I was driving on the 405. I was so excited, but the tears kind of flooded, and all the years of kind of hardship and stuff that, you know, my mother and I had gone through between, you know, evictions and repossessions and negative bank accounts and, you know, illnesses and all this stuff, it all kind of came to fruition. I had flashbacks of rush of emotions of everything that had happened, and you know, kind of started me on my journey right then. But I don't think I've ever been more grateful. And even to this day, I had an interview yesterday, and I was like, of any movie I've ever done, that was probably the most gratifying one, because
Right.
it was kind of the dawn of a new day and just kind of turning over a new leaf, and you know, the beginnings of accomplishing everything that I had wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, I love that, because there's been days that, you know, I feel like, what am I doing? Why did I leave teaching? And then I'm always reminded,
Yeah,
and I hear that voice in my head, you know, park 4 miles down the road if you have to and walk and keep going. So
yeah,
thank you for that. I don't think you realize what an impact, and I think I read it on your Instagram feed, what an impact that made for me, because it's
uh,
given me push and, you know, strength to keep going when some days I'm like, oh my God, being
gotta,
an entrepreneur is
gotta
not as
keep
easy as
going.
everybody thinks, you know?
It's
Your mom was
not.
a
It's
teacher,
not.
wasn't she?
My mom was a teacher. My mom's an English teacher for 25 years, and she was also the drama teacher at my middle school. First
Okay.
play that I was ever in was a play that she and I wrote together. Yeah,
Very cool. Very cool.
yeah. And when it comes to you know, intestinal fortitude and keeping going, I mean, for me, I had no other options. There was no backup plan. There was no, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'm gonna go live with my parents or anything like that. It was the opposite, to be honest with you. So I think that when you don't have any other options, when you make up in your mind to not have a plan B, that's when everything kind of starts to come to fruition. You know what I mean? You put all your energies into whatever that thing is that you want. I don't care how saturated the market may seem or anything like that. You know, God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. If you have a calling, you have something that's burning in your belly like that, that means that God put that in there. And he's not going to give you a desire or a passion for something without making it a viable source of income for you. You
I
know,
agree
and I
with
don't
you.
want to preach at you. Yeah, I don't want to preach at you, but you know, biblically it says that, you know, a man's gifts will make room for him in the earth. So whatever it is, I don't care if you're the best coaster maker on the planet. If that's what your calling is, you can do that thing. I don't care how, you know, saturated the coaster market is. You know what I'm saying?
I
You'll
hear you.
stand out if you do it the right way. Now, that's not to say you can just jump into something because you decided that you want to do it today. I think it's important to get an education in anything that you you know, claim to be passionate about. You should get an education on it so that you can have staying power. But again, I think that you got to make up in your mind that, you know, quitting is not an option. It can't be.
I agree with you. I want to just reiterate one thing you said, and you said there's no plan B. And I remember when I left teaching in 2017, people said, well, you can always come back. And I said, that's not an option. Like, I am doing this
Mm-hmm.
because in my heart, in my soul, I know this is the right move for me. So I totally agree with you. And you have to be wise about it. You have to be smart about it. You have to go for your dreams. But
Mm-hmm.
again, do the research, be ready to do it. And I was
Right.
ready. So the plan B, where you have an opportunity to fall back, you don't put 100% into it. So
Absolutely.
I
Mm-hmm.
agree with that. I actually have to turn in my resignation letter in a day or two, and I'm done, because there is no
Oh,
plan B
wow.
for me. There is no plan
Let's
B. And
go.
my family thought I had lost my mind. You know, some
Mine
of my
too.
students are actually watching right now, so super excited
Mm-hmm.
for them to get to hear that as well. But really, there's no plan B. When you have your heart and your soul in something, you just got to go for it. I know
Yeah,
you have a
absolutely.
son. What is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self, or that you give to your son? Because I have some high school kids from Miami. I know we had this debate,
Oh,
but
yeah.
HML, what? So I have
Hey,
some.
305, Sac Passe, all my Caribbean people, all my Miami people, all you Sunshine Staters, what's up? I try not to give advice because I'm still on this rock, learning everything I possibly can every day. But I do I do speak on what I have learned. The greatest gift my mother ever gave me was to teach me to question everything. She would tell me to go do something, and I would go do it, and I would come back and she'd say, "Why did you do that?" I said, "Because you told me to." She said, "Good, you're being obedient. But do you know why I asked you to do that?" I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Don't you want to know why?" And I was like, yeah, and then she would explain it. But she taught me to question everything, not to just, I feel like right now, in this country and in the world period, we have such an influx of information everywhere. And no one's actually doing the homework to figure out if that information applies to them or if it's true, if it's accurate. So for me, she taught me to question everything. I teach my son to question everything because I want him to be a free thinker. I want him to think for himself. We've got a society of followers right now, and nobody's blazing their own path. Nobody has the balls to quit their job and go do that thing that they wanted to do their entire life. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but I'm never going to punch anyone's time clock. And not to say that anyone who does, is wrong, but for
Right.
me, that was not the path for me. And so, like, I always want him to learn to know how to think for himself, question everything without being, without being rebellious or anything like that. But
A
always
little
know why
rebellion
you're
is
doing something.
okay.
Yeah, a little rebellion's okay. A little fight the power is okay. But to an extent, you've gotta know why you're doing what you're doing, and it's linked directly to your purpose. You know what I mean? So I want my son to find his purpose, not because I told him to, but because he's passionate, because he feels it, and because he thinks for himself. So that's the greatest thing. Another thing is, it's gonna sound so basic, but kindness really does make a myriad of a difference. You know what I mean? It makes a world of a difference. Right now we're in a world that doesn't even see each other. We don't take time to see and hear and listen to each other.
Right.
And I think that, the more that we are cognizant of what's going on with each other, like truly ask somebody how they're doing today. If you ask them how they're doing and you see there's a little something off in their response and they exhale or they sigh when they say they're fine, take a minute out. If you got 2 minutes, sit down and grab a coffee with them and see what's going on. I think that sometimes can make a world of difference in their day as well. So I think, kindness goes a long way. And I think oftentimes that's why I've worked more than I would have ever imagined, is that, people remember how you made them feel. They might not remember what you did or
Yeah,
said. They remember
absolutely.
how they felt when they were with you. So, if God wanted us to be on this earth alone or for ourselves, he would have put us here one at a time. You know what I mean? So we're here all together, and we got to be out here, looking out for each other. It's
I
really,
love
really simple to me,
I
but yeah.
I want to add something that you said because I was talking to a woman the other day, and she actually was a student at the school I taught at 20 years ago. And I saw her at an event with her son, and she's like, "Yeah, my son is this gregarious. He's gregarious. He's smart. He's awesome." And she's like, "And sometimes he wants to get out of the car and run out and dance." And I tell him, "No, no, no." And I thought to myself, I said, "Don't stop him. Allow him that freedom, because that's something so beautiful, that he has this desire to get out and to he's not fearful of what other people are going to think, and he just wants to do
Right.
something that's outside of the norm. So be your true self
Might be part of
outside
his
of the
calling.
norm."
Yeah.
Huh?
hmm So that might be his part of his calling. Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool also. Like, I love what you
Mhm.
said, like question and not be afraid. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions and to do what feeds your soul.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. hmm
you know, and I don't know if you want to touch on this, but I know that you had, you talk a lot about sharing some of your fears, and I know that things happened to you when you were younger and you came out and you were able to talk about them. And as a
hmm
man, I think that was really powerful.
hmm
Are
Yeah.
you able to say anything about that?
Well, so yeah, as a child, I experienced sexual abuse. And what was cut off on that interview, on the Now This interview, was that my brother was actually abused far more than I was, by the same person. And I feel like throughout my life, it kind of it limited me because I had suppressed the emotions so much that I honestly forgot that it even happened. But my body, my psyche did not forget, and I was acting out in ways that I didn't personally approve of, or that my parents would not approve of. I think that part of me wanted to prove to myself that, you know, I'm not gay, or, you know, prove to myself, because I was abused by a boy, a 16-year-old boy. So I think part of me wanted to like out macho everybody or something. That part of me wanted to prove that I could conquer any woman who came in my path. You know what I mean? It was just a lot of really self-destructive behavior, and in my wake lied a bunch of bodies and broken relationships because of it. And at one point, you know, when I had my son, is when I finally decided to just let it out, you know, get it out, talk about it. And I felt like I needed that. That was limiting me from being the best possible father that I could be, because I was almost, a part of me was afraid to display too much emotion to anyone, or let anyone feel like they had any control over me by loving them too much, you know? And so I had the conversation, you know, first with my girlfriend at the time, who, you know, when I told her, her first question was, wait, so are you gay? And I was like, this is exactly what I was afraid of. So I think that when people are willing to open up to you about traumatic experiences in their life, try not to use those experiences as a weapon against them. I don't think things like that should ever come up in an argument, especially when you know people are working through them and such. Right. You know, ultimately, so she was the first person I told, and then I was able to tell my mom, who, to be perfectly honest, I think that it was really difficult for her to hear. So her response was quite jarring. It was a little more shocking than I had anticipated, but it's because, you know, I put myself in her shoes as a parent. If I felt like my child was hurt on my watch and I didn't do anything about it, I can't imagine how right. painful that would be for me. So, you know, I forgave her for her response to it as well. But that moment kind of really shaped my life in a very impactful way. And I've kind of dedicated myself to making sure that I help in the healing process with other men, especially because I know that men are limited to a certain amount of emotions. We're only limited to happy or mad. And then black men specifically are limited to a certain amount of emotions, which is just happy or mad, but not too happy because that's corny, and not too mad because you might scare white people. That's the truth. So I've gotten to a place now where I like to talk things out. You know, I had a temper for a moment as well, because I didn't want anyone to think I was weak, you know. So now I've learned how to talk things out as they're happening. Okay, listen, I don't appreciate when you do this, this, and this. Can you please not do that? You know what I mean? So communication is the ultimate goal right now in my healing process. Is that I try my best to communicate effectively, clearly. It's a challenge for me because I've had this life of internalizing everything so much. But now, you know, communicating. Now, you know, trying to break down the barriers of affection and stuff. You know, I'm extremely affectionate with my son because I don't ever want him to think that's a weak trait. My son sees me as a superhero. He thinks I'm the biggest, strongest thing that he's ever seen. And if he sees me able to be vulnerable and soft with him, you know, maybe he'll assume that that's a part of being strong as well, you know. So it's just, I think that it's important to change the world, right? And it sounds so such a blanket statement.
I will tell you by saying what you said and sharing that part of you, you have made such an impact and such a huge difference for so many people that you don't even know at this point what impact that made. Because if they see you and they hear you talking about it as a black male and as a actor, as somebody who has a platform and was still able and willing to share that, you made such an impact. And when I read that, I was like, wow, like my hats off to you.
I appreciate that. I just think I think people think that changing the world is like changing the 7 billion people that are on this planet. And I realized that if we affect the people that are directly around us, 3 people around you, that becomes exponential. If those 3 affect 3, so on and so forth, by the time we get to the 6th ring, that's 81 people that have been affected. You know what I mean?
Yep.
243 people from that point, if those 3, you know what I mean, touch someone else. So you can change the world exponentially by just affecting the people that are directly within your care. That is your world. And if you can change that world, then you'll live a more fruitful life. You know what I'm saying? We're only here for 72 years. That's our life expectancy. So, like, what are you doing with that time? You know, are you going to live this life of pain and anger and hurt and trying to make everybody pay for everything that ever pained you in your life? Or are you going to do your best to just, like, be able to breathe free, let go of all that bull crap that's holding you back? You know what I mean? And that's where I am right now. You know, affecting change in young men's lives is part of my calling, and in women's lives, you know, as well. I think that we can be allies for everything that's affecting our sisters in this world right now, especially all these abortion laws and everything that are popping up. We have to stand there and speak up for the voiceless, speak up for the disenfranchised. If you see someone not listening to women around you, talk. If you see someone not speaking up for impoverished people around you, speak up. If you know that they're going to listen to you, you know what I mean? If you see someone not speaking up for you know, a Muslim person around you, speak up. You know, I don't like bullies, and you know that's kind of my motto. I bully bullies. You know, I don't like people that are being taken advantage of because they're not as strong or they're not as heard. You know, no one wants to hear their voice. So, you know, that's kind of my mission right now. I could care less about if it affects my career negatively or not, because at the end of the day, you know, I've already outperformed whatever I thought I was going to do in the first place. You know what I mean? I've proven enough to myself. And, you know, I always say I could go pro in something else tomorrow if that's the case. You know what I mean? But I'm never going to stop speaking up for what's right, you know, by any means necessary, you know?
And in the Talmud, they say when you save a life, you save a generation. And I agree with you. Speak up. And there are some tough things going out right now, you know, and as part of being where I'm at also and building my movement and building my platform, that's also one of the things that I'm always, you know, do I say what I want to say? And there are times that I can't hold back. And you know, after what happened in at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas down here, I was like, you know, the whole thing with gun laws, and I have a really strong opinion. I think that what needs to happen is we need to bring back character development in schools and teach kids how to have an opportunity, like you said, to use their voice, to speak, to say things they need to say, to heal.
Discipline.
And there were people who were like, oh, you know, guns. And in my opinion, that wasn't the answer. And I had to think long and hard. Do I really want to say what I want to say and you know, risk upsetting people? And I was like, I let it out. I was like, say what you need to say, and the people who want to hang out and still talk to you will hang out and still talk to me, and that was it. And it was one of the most powerful things I did because.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the school shootings and stuff that are happening, it's a multi-layered problem. I mean, there's so many issues at hand, but I think that, you know, one of the greatest issues is that these kids don't feel like they're being heard. I'm not making excuses for murderers, first of all. Let me clarify. I'm not making excuses for murderers, but hurt people, right? We know that. So people are not being heard right now, and this boils back down to what I was saying before. See each other. You know what I'm saying? See someone. If you see there's a kid hurting or something like that, it's really not that difficult to see. You know what I mean? Shoulders slumped, or when they say, you know, they're masking, you know, their pain with constantly, you know, speaking out and stuff. I've worked with a lot of kids in my life. We've got to get to the root of the problem. These kids are not being heard. These kids are not being heard because their parents are working 2 and 3 jobs to try to keep food on the table because the minimum wage is so low and it's not keeping up with what our overhead costs are, you know, the cost of living as well. So now we have absent parents. Now we also have the most divorcees in history. We're over 60% now as well. So we got single parent households that are working 2 and 3 jobs to keep food on the table. They're not listening to the kid. The kid is going to school. They're feeling like they're disconnected. And as soon as anyone slights them, or if they're coming from an impoverished background or something like that, you're making fun of their shoes or you're making fun of their clothes or whatever. Now you got a problem. This kid is making a hit list in his head. You know, I think it's a multi-layered problem. That's not the only way that this stuff happens. There's plenty of other ways. I think there's psychological and mental issues that are going unaddressed as well. You know, I think that we have probably the most you know, mental health problems that we've maybe ever had, and that comes down to what we're putting in our bodies and
I agree with you.
You know, the toxins and stuff even in our atmosphere and destroying our planet. There's so many issues at hand here as to why we're having so it's a multi-layered problem, but I think that we got to start somewhere, man. And it's you know,
I agree with you.
partnering up with my financial advisor to teach them financial literacy classes and stuff as well, to
That
get
is one of
people to a place.
That is
Mm-hmm.
huge. You know, I used to teach math, and
Yeah.
one of my things my students used to say is that I would take time and talk about budgets, and I would teach a writing class, and we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, FICO scores. And I think that is such a powerful point that you just said, because we need
Yeah.
to, the only way we're going to bring kids up is if we teach them. And it's not just the reading
Yeah.
and the writing and the math, it's those life skills.
Right.
So,
Right. Just, I mean, we gotta give these kids something to look up to now, you know, at this point. I mean, it's our world now, right? We're running it.
you
We're
rock.
the adults here. So we got to give them something to look up to. And you know, it sounds like a tall task, but if you can affect just a couple of them, give them a role model, you know, be a role model, get a mentee, ask for a mentor. If you're a young person, ask
Yes.
for a mentor. And you don't even have to be a young person. We need to ask for mentors as well. You
I
know, I
have
reach
them.
out to people that I look up to all the time. You know, have sounding boards around in place, and people to help you think through life. You know, it's a lot. We got a lot on us. I feel sorry for a lot of the kids these days too, because, you know, when it comes to bullying, and stuff like that, you know, we'd get in a fight and school would talk about it for 2 weeks and then it's over. Now everybody's got a cell phone and they can record it, and they live in infamy for years, and they're feeling, you know, they're famous for getting beaten up or for beating someone up, and or for, making fun
Horrible.
of them and
Yes.
trolling them for not having, and blah blah blah. I couldn't imagine being a kid these days. You know, I understand why the youth suicide rates are so high, but we gotta start putting an end to this stuff by listening to these kids, making them feel like they have someone in their corner and like they have someone positive to look up to. So, you know, I'm gonna try to do my best. I know you're doing your best. I see you every day as well. And you know, ultimately, that's the plan. You know, each one reach one, each one teach one, each one reach one, teach one. See what we can do. You
All right,
know.
I got to ask you actually two last questions.
Mhm.
One is, do you have a gratitude practice? And then if you do, tell me about it.
Do I have a gratitude practice? I meditate a lot, but not in a traditional sense. I think some people think that meditating is like sitting, you know, with your feet crossed. And I do a lot of, I wake up at 5 a.m. every day, and I do a lot of creative visualization. I remember where I was versus where I am now and where I want to go. And I literally just sit there and I thank God for each thing individually, that he's afforded me.
I got to ask you
Um,
something. When you say
mhm.
visualize, because I read something also when you were talking about it. So when you're talking about visualize, you're actually talking about feeling, because you said something about feeling what it is I want, even if I don't have it yet. Acting as if.
Not just feeling it, seeing it. I literally, I think, specific goals yield specific results, just like specific meditation yields specific results as well. So I will literally see myself walking into the house that I want to walk into, see myself eating even the food that I want to eat, see myself laughing, talking with friends about, you know, specific conversations, see myself on vacation or being able to pay off, you know, a house for my mother, see myself, you know, being able to provide for the people around me. I literally visualize myself doing every detail in every aspect of my life that I want, to affect change in. So I even have a vision board that I put myself in every type of scenario in, as well. So that visualization, when I first moved to LA, I took a picture in front of every single studio that I wanted to work at some point. And I've literally, of the 8, I've worked at 7 of them. I got 1 left. You know, visualizing yourself, literally seeing yourself, and truly believing that you're able to accomplish that goal, whatever that thing
That's
is.
the most
See
important key
yourself in
right
the
there.
relationship that you want to be in. See yourself, accomplishing the healing that you want to accomplish, and exhaling when that last straw has been, taken off. You know what I mean, off your shoulders. So, all of those type of things is what I try to visualize.
I love it. I love that. And I like especially feeling it, seeing it and
Mm-hmm.
feeling it is I think really important. So my last question for you is what organization, because do you support? Because I would love to, anybody who purchases like one of our shirts or journals, anything this week, the code that they can use is SER10, SER10. And I would love to give, something back to any organization that you support, because honestly, I really appreciate the time that you took today. And
Of course.
thank you.
Of course. There's a organization I'm involved with called CASA, where they help out orphaned youth, orphaned teens. They get them with families. They help them through the foster care system and get them ready, prepared for college. So they get them in a good home, and they prepare them for college. They help them through any legal issues that they might be having in terms of truancy, or if they are leaving an abusive household, or if their parents are trying to get back on their feet and get off of drugs or out of an abusive relationship and stuff like that. So CASA, it's CASA. My mom was an orphan, so it means a lot to me to have that type of involvement. I've been gone for a year shooting Charmed in Vancouver, so I'm finally back in LA, and I'll be able to be more hands-on and be able to go to the courtroom with these kids and just give them some support. A lot of them feel very alone as well, and we don't want them to continue or repeat certain patterns of behavior. So that's a huge one. Tell them I sent you. If anyone else wants to get involved, definitely go to the website casa.org, and let them know Ser'Darius sent you.
Awesome. So anybody who purchased anything off Living in Gratitude Today website, and I'll put the link in after we get off, Living in Gratitude Today, I will put money towards that, all the purchases made towards that organization. So thank you. Are they only in LA, or are they throughout the nation?
They're in a few cities, actually. They're throughout the nation. They're in most of the major markets, but it was started in LA. Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine is starting an organization called Memories in a Mansion, and her idea is to take kids after they get out of high school, and once they're now ready to start their own life, to take those kids and put them in a mansion and teach them life skills so that they're able to kind of visualize and dream about things that they didn't know existed. And she's starting that with girls in South Florida, so I'll send you some information on that as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. So, awesome.
Thank you again for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it. Are you rocking your grateful shirt?
I am. I worked out in it the other day, actually.
You have to send me a picture.
Oh, yeah. Black and gold, baby. Black and gold. Let's go.
Hey. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vismaya.